بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله والمبعوث رحمة للعالمين. So we want to come back to the introductory page of the method, wherein the Shaykh begins in the name of Allah Ta'ala. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, prayers and abundant peace be upon our Master Muhammad and upon his family and companions. And he begins with a line from Shaykh al-Fulati: all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of the world. Blessings and peace be upon the Master of the messengers and upon the family and his companions, upon his family and his companions, all of them. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with the masters among the Tabi'een, the right acting scholars, the four Imams who exercise independent judgment, and those who follow them until the day of judgment to continue. Says the poor slave in need of the mercy of his forgiving Lord, Shaykh Ibn Ishaq, the Amir, the possessor of great character, much goodness and a weighty command, the one who has no equal, the son of our Shaykh, the Imam, the magnanimous Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ahmad al-Rafa'i, whose beneficence is like the rain cloud. His benefit is like the rain cloud. May Allah grant us enjoyment during his lifetime, and may he elongate his life, and may he safeguard us and him from every mishap. May he make it easy for him after realizing the obligations to attain the variety of virtuous acts and turn us away from corrupt desires and from every shortcoming and rancor and that hinder us, from every hindrance and distraction. By his favor and generosity, he ordered me to compile for him something that would comprise the prerequisites. This is the line here, people. He ordered me to compile for him something that would comprise the prerequisites of the prayer, his obligations, his sin, his marriage, his acts, the acts that are reprehensible, and that which invalidates the prayer, and the circumstances of, or the points in which we, the points when to do the sahwa or the prostration has been before the salam and after the salam, and what rectifies it, what rectifies the prayer. So that's the line. That line there is important because it is the line that summarizes people. It summarizes for us why the book was written and the structure of the book. That one line. Now, if you notice, it's very interesting because sometimes Sheikh Muhammad Sharif, he injects the four madhab position, which we have to understand this a little different than just saying the four madhab. Because Sheikh Ahmad al-Fodi, what he did is that he gave legitimacy for the four madhab in a time period where there was madhab rivalry, meaning one madhab would want to dominate the other madhab. So the idea of pushing the four madhabs here is to show this body of fiqh while also systematically studying, right? Sometimes that is overlooked. Why push the four madhabs? Well, you have some people that will say my madhab is better than that madhab. But when you push the idea of the four madhabs, you push the concept that the Sunni schools that are being practiced and studied. That doesn't mean there's no other madhab. That concept is not a right concept. There's other madhab. There were other madhab as well. And in Azhar, they teach those things because in order to be a solid scholar, you need to access any scholarship that's sound, that's going to benefit the people. So, but the core knowledge of the Sunni identity is within those madhabs. But of course, because we're, open to Andalus and other madhabs, but also the tendency of Ibn Hazm. The tendency of Ibn Hazm is also a legitimate school. That was what was practiced in Andalus, even though when Ibn Hazm deviates, probably the ulama, they don't, on points where he deviates, they don't take him serious. But his scholarship is still strong. And that scholarship which goes in that place. Now, in the time period of revival of the fiqh tradition and hadith tradition, we also acknowledge that the scholars of hadith, some of them didn't follow the madhab, they didn't follow Ibn Hazm, and they had their own madhab. Of those people like Imam Bukhari, contrary to what people try to say, they try to make Imam Bukhari fit into one of the schools, but we know that they were from the scholars of Ijtihad. In any event, I don't want to focus on that too much. But the idea that given legitimacy, yes.
Excuse me. Yeah, my question was, why do you think that Ibn Hazm's madhab was not preserved? Like, why is the Zahiri school kind of like a taboo thing? Like, I've heard different things from different teachers. They say don't study it; it's a dead school. Then some people say no, it's very good. He was a great benefit. I know they used to burn his books in Andalus at one point. There was an issue with the Zahiris and the Malikis. So my question to you is, why, or what are one of the reasons you think may be possible why his school was not preserved? Why is it not? It didn't last like the other four schools we had. Why did the Zahiri school kind of die out? I just wanted to know your opinion on it. What is one of the possibilities of why?
That question can really be dealt with solidly. It needs deeper research, but we can play with the idea a little bit. But it needs deeper research to kind of look at it. There's a number of things which you can put on the table. One is an Andalus collapse. The Malikis, that argument of burning his books, or that's not even an argument. That kind of claim, I don't know, because they burned Ghazali's books too. You know what I'm saying? They had burned Ghazali's books in Al-Andalus. So that just shows you that there was a climate of intolerance. But the fall of Al-Andalus weighed heavily on a lot of different levels. Because remember that the Hanbali madhab was not practiced in the Andalus. The Zahiri school was in the school of Al-Awza'i as well. It was practiced. School of Al-Awza'i was practiced in Al-Andalus. It was practiced in places like Lebanon and so on and so forth. There were some schools that were incorporated into other schools somewhat. But the Zahiri school is survived because the books are here. His Usul is here, Fatawa are here, and you have people that practice the Zahiri school. It's just it's not large numbers. But the Zahiri school, and you have to remember people like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, they also drew from the scholarship of Hadith of Ibn Hazm. So he was solid in that. That doesn't mean he was perfect. That doesn't mean he didn't have issues or mistakes. That's what scholars overall. So part of the dilemma is the fall of Al-Andalus. Part of the dilemma is the student. Part of the dilemma too is like the mastery that it requires. You know, the variety school requires in many cases more mastery than the other schools. You know, because in other words, you have to be solid in hadith to build the whole concept of that you're going to eliminate qiyas. Some people say the elimination of qiyas or the elimination of analogy, which basically they said that we're not going to utilize analogy much, which would mean that we have the ability to extend the rulings in new situations. And we spend most of the last time on this issue of speaking to reality and you know, extending how do we apply Islam to reality. Well, that was one of the main issues. You know, the closing off of of that door. And just the general environment. There was no government support. A lot of the other schools survived because of government support. And government support gave them legitimacy, gave them funding, gave them that. And there's no, honestly, I don't find that to be anything of a problem because it's just Islam has always had the idea of government support. From the time of the Prophet to the time of the companions, Umar is a big case of that. The ulama being supported, knowledge being supported. So those could be some of the reasons. The fall of Al-Andalus, the difficulty of mastery, this difficulty of mastery it takes to really work with the hadith at a high level, the elimination of qiyas from the madhab, or limiting. Some people say he limited qiyas, he didn't totally eliminate it, but the popular opinion is that he eliminated it. The other issue is no government support. So it was a school, like, for instance, like us. Like, we're a small group. If you don't keep this effort going, there's no whole institution, whatever, what this limitation just goes away. You know what I'm saying? Say if I pass away, if I shut it down, this idea of a Sunday meeting just goes away unless it's continued. And that's the same concept with those. I'm not putting myself at the level of the Hajj, but it's the same principle. If the students don't continue it, that's the same reason why the other madhab faded as well. The madhab of Imam al-Layth, madhab of Imam al-Awza'i, Abi Layla, and those people like that, they were before Imam Abu Hanifa. So Ahl al-Rai, they had other imams outside of Abu Hanifa, but Abu Hanifa became dominant. So those are some of the reasons that are said even about the other madhab, except that in Al-Andalus, the other issue that we want to emphasize is sectarianism. The Malikis were no joke. The Malikis were no joke. Like the Malikis, this is why Al-Andalus collapsed. Because of the violence. The violence between the different groups. But even the Asharis at that point, even Tumarat, he was like he was a militant Ashari. You know what I'm saying? Like they were coming in militantly. And he had some deviancy too, from the angle of he forced the idea that he was the Mahdi. And people like Qadi Iyad and others, is said, but there's some debates that he got impacted because of that. So the debate is whether he was killed because of it. Even Imam Abu Zahra, he says Ibn Fityan was a Maliki who he beat up Imam Shafi'i because Imam Shafi'i wasn't following the Maliki method. Some scholars say that story is debatable, but it just shows you the intolerance. You know what I'm saying, in the cultures. So intolerance as well. You know what I'm saying. But I had a teacher who was Maliki Zahri. One of my teachers used to teach Ibn Hazm. So it's still alive. You know what I'm saying. And some issues like you met Shaykh Akram. Shaykh Akram, Akram Nadwi. Shaykh Akram Nadwi, he published one of Imam Ibn Hazm's fatwas on women attending the masjid. And Imam Ibn Hazm was way more close to the Sunnah in that issue than the Hanafi school. But the Hanafi school, the Hanafi school, they're closer to the position of Aisha in that regard. They're not forbidding the women to come to forbidding the women to come to the masjid. Salah. So those are some of the reasons. But to get to more solid reason, that needs some. I'm pretty sure somebody did a study on it. No, but you as a student of knowledge, you should appreciate the Zahidi school because what the Zahidi school offers, the Zahidi school is in opposition to the Batini school. So Sheikh Hassan Shafi is one of the masters of Ilm al-Kalam in our time period, along his life. He did a chart in his book is called the Madkhal ila Ilm al-Kalam, or the Gateway to Ilm al-Kalam. So in the chart, he put the Sahaba in the middle, and then he puts the different groups to the left or to the right, depending on how far they move away. Like the left, I think it's like uh, those who don't respect or move away from the literal meaning of the text. Then those who, follow the literal meaning of the text. So what he does is he says the opposition to the Zahiri school was the Batini school, the esoteric, which is kind of like the Masons, like secret meanings and all this type of thing. So the Zahiri school was a response to the Masons. So their impact was still felt because it's like when you look at Imam al-Ghazali's books, Imam al-Ghazali has a pamphlet that's entitled Fadail al-Bahar, something like that. So the virtues or the good qualities of those who follow the literal meanings of the text. Why? Because he was arguing against those who were giving secret meanings to the text. And some of the Sufis fell in that because sometimes there's an overlap between Sufism and other philosophies, including the Shi'i school. Right? The Sufism is a broad umbrella. And so now, that's why there's debates about Sufism. And some Sufism is accepted, some Sufism is not. But the idea of emptying out the meanings of the text became a key problem. And so the Zahidi school appeared because of that in many ways. And the Shafi school is very Zahidi, actually. Shafi school is very Zahidi, more Zahidi than the Malikis and the Hanafis. And weird as it is, because I studied some Shafi, well, I should say I sat in the Duruta at a high level. And one of my teachers would say, he was Maliki, but he had studied Shafi Fiqh, he was teaching it as well. So he said, like, I've never seen so much qiyas. So they criticize the Hanafi school, but they have qiyas as well. They have a lot of analogy that they use to, sometimes when it's not necessary, but in any event, the Shafi school had inherited that literalist tendencies. And part of that was because Imam Shafi felt that people were going against the Sunnah. And that was part of the renewal of the practice of the Sunnah is to respect the literal meanings. It's much more, if it wasn't for some of the people of Tasawwuf, like people like Izzuddin Abdul Salam and al-Ghazali, perhaps if we wanted to list the Juwaini there as well, the Shafi school wouldn't be very maqasid oriented. The Maliki school looks more to the spirit of the room and the objective in a very practical way. in a very practical way, you know, because of the issue of masla. And that's where there's an overlap between the Hanbali school and the Maliki school. But the Maliki school, whether people like it or not, it's one of the mother schools. You know, the Maliki school existed before the connection of the 6 books of Hadith. So the Maliki school was built on one of the first collections of a Hadith to be written. That doesn't mean there was no other books of Hadith, but the Maliki school built off of narrations of Malik. And Malik, even though the irony and the peculiarity of the Muwatta is that every hadith that's considered, well, I shouldn't say every, most hadith that are considered weak or giving examples or are given as examples from weak hadith are found in the Muwatta. But every one of them, upon deeper research, is sound. It's just that how Malik had a way of dealing with hadith that was extremely unique. You know, that regard. So that's something, you know, to think about. So he also says the Shaykh that this text has an introduction and 8 sections and a conclusion. And so when he introduced into the introduction, we covered this idea already. But when he introduces the idea that the Salah has 3 categories, those things in the Salah which relate to speech, those things in the Salah which relate to action, and those things which are neither action nor speech. So as far as speech is concerned, all of the speech in the Salah is to be considered sunnah except 3 things. So all of the speech in the Salah is to be considered sunnah except 3 things. As far as action is concerned, all of the actions of the Salah are considered to be faridah or obligatory except for 3 things. Except for 3 things. Right? So that's a very good start. That's a review of what we covered last week.
Can you
idea,
I kind of lost what page we were on.
we're still on the same page. We're on the same page, but we're just expanding on it. We moved to, hold on a second. We're on 37, 38.
Okay, thank you.
So on 37, the statement was that he ordered me to compile for him something that would comprise the prerequisites of the prayer, his obligations, his sunnahs, his merits, his acts, the acts that are considered reprehensible, and those acts which invalidate the prayer, and the positions in which the prayer, the prostration for forgetfulness is made, the prostration before the salam and after the salam, and what rectifies the salam. So that's the line, that's the guiding line for the book. Everything else that comes after is kind of just building off of that, right? So that's how we're taking that. And then he goes and he talks about what, he kind of gives a summary of what each chapter is about. Chapter 1 is on the condition of the prayer. Chapter 2 is on the obligations of the prayer. Chapter 3 is on the sunnah of the prayer. Chapter 4 is on the merits of the prayer. Chapter 5 is on those things which are reprehensible or disliked. Chapter 6 is on what invalidates the salah. And chapter 7 is on the prostration of forgetfulness. And chapter 8 is the circumstances, or is on the okay. Chapter 7 is on the frustration or forgetfulness before the salam. Chapter 8 is on the frustration of forgetfulness after the salam, right? And then the conclusion, right, which basically talks about Fajr and Witr. So that's a Fajr. The issue of Fajr and Witr is a very subtle conversation that he's had. You have to be advanced in knowledge to come to that type of conversation, even though he puts it here. Because there's some conversation that's had by the scholars with regard to Fajr and Witr. Well, it should actually be read Subh. It shouldn't read Fajr. Because in the Maliki school, we don't say Fajr for the Prophet Salah. We say Subh. Fajr is the Sunnah. But he translated it as Subh. But I mean, he translated it as Fajr, sorry. Which is no problem, but it just needs to be clarified. But in the Maliki school, the 2 rak'ahs that are obligatory in the morning are the Subh prayer. Fajr is the Sunnah. The 2 Sunnah that come before. So he says that the Salah breaks up into 3 parts. We mentioned that already, mentioned that a couple of times. It breaks up into that which is considered speech, that which is considered action, that which is neither of the two, is neither speech nor action. And then I just want you to memorize the two ideas. That as far as the speech is concerned, everything is sunnah except 3 things. Don't memorize anything else, please. Everything is sunnah when it comes to speech except 3 things. And everything is a fariḍah as far as action is concerned except 3 things. If you memorize that, everything else is easy after. So let's stop there, inshallah. And then he mentioned what those 3 things are, but I don't want to go deeper than that.
Okay.
Because I want you to memorize the statement. When it comes to speech, everything is sunnah except 3 things. And then as far as action, everything is followed, or everything is a faridah except 3 things. These statements are important, people, because these statements are from the kulliyat. Right? They're almost like qawaid. It almost reaches the level of qawaid, but they're not. It's like they're generalizing statements that give us a lot of insight. They give us a lot of insight because it allows us to get a lot of knowledge in a very easy way. And remember, that's what Shaykh was meant for these techniques. He's like, we don't want to spend years and years and years of studying to be a scholar, so we don't have to. You know what I'm saying? We want to study correctly and soundly, but we want a way that is going to eliminate us having to go through an educational process that's unnecessary. So in studying fiqh, the idea is that the kulli statements, right, are very important because of this, because they give us a lot of knowledge. So speech, everything is sunnah except 3 things. So in action, everything is a faridah except 3 things. Part of the salah is concerned. That gives you an easy way. So I think that's not difficult to memorize.
Mm-mm.
So let's say together, everything, as far as speech, everything is sunnah except 3 things.
Except everything is sunnah except 3 things.
For
And
what though?
everything is sunnah except 3 things. In
For what?
and regarding salah.
No. As far as the speech.
Oh, subhanallah. I'm sorry.
no reason
Okay.
to be charged. That's what the whole idea is that. So every part of speech in the salah, in other words, right, is considered to be sunnah except three things. Every action of the salah is considered to be farida or obligatory except three things. So let's end here, inshallah. May Allah accept from us and facilitate understanding from it. Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. جزاك الله خير.